What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Millionaire in the Making podcast. My name is Gage.
Justin.
And today we have a very special guest, but I'm going to go ahead and kick it to Justin and let him kind of do the intro.
All right, we have a very, very close personal friend, a mentor to me, somebody that I've known for going on about 5+ years now. This is Kevin. Kevin, give us a brief introduction on who you are.
What's up, guys? Excited to be here. So, who am I? Oh my gosh, that's hard to say.
Loaded question.
Loaded question.
Yeah, that is a loaded question. So, entrepreneur, father, husband, property owner, business guy, investor. Love to work out, do crazy things, hard things. Have a million hobbies. Love to travel. Love to be spontaneous. It's hard to really put all that into a sentence.
So if I had to ask you, what do you do for a living? How would you answer that?
Oh, I'd say, well, first of all, I'm an entrepreneur for sure.
Okay.
I love to be creative. And, you know, my background education-wise before I dropped out of school was construction and architecture. So I wanted to learn to design and build unique homes. And so I fell in love with designing and building unique businesses.
Okay.
So that's what I do. That's who I am. As far as like what I do specifically, I'm not in any one industry, which is very unique.
Okay.
So I actually, 15 years ago is when I started my first business. I haven't had a job in 15 years, which is crazy.
Unemployed? Love it.
Yeah, unemployed and loving it. I know you said unemployed and I love it. But
Unemployed, uneducated, in the government's eyes.
that's right.
Living life free.
You got it. Living free. So,
Okay. So tell me this. You started construction. What made you want to stop that?
well, I didn't necessarily want to stop that at the beginning other than it was extremely hard manual labor with all the elements, you know, here in South Alabama where we live, you know, it's crazy humidity and sweating out there and gnats and, you know, sawdust in your eyes and brutal heat and cold enough to be miserable when, you know, you're outside doing manual labor. But I was there, it was a means to an end because I had a vision to own a construction company and build and design unique homes. And so it was part of the process.
Okay.
But what happened was out of necessity, because I needed extra income, I was broke. I was working 40 to 50 hours a week running a construction crew. I was going to college 15 credit hours a semester, 5 nights a week, getting my basics done for an architecture degree. So more than full-time hours in school. And was broke. And so I didn't have much time for studying. So that means weekends I would try to study some and church on Sunday, spend some time with the family and try to get with friends, but I didn't have any money. So if they were doing something that costed money, then I just couldn't go. So I'd make up an excuse because my pride was there. I didn't want to say I couldn't afford it. So out of necessity, I needed money, and I knew that I was going to transfer to a major university, and I couldn't work 40 or 50 hours a week at my job. So I had to start my first business because I didn't have time for a second job, but I desperately needed income.
Okay.
So it was a turning point in my life because it forces you to be creative and it forces you to throw all of your excuses out of the window. Like, what do you do when you need money and you don't have time for another job? So getting another job is not an answer. What do you do?
That is a good question. What do you do? How did Kevin do it?
Well, I started my first business. I had never read a book outside of high school and college. Never met a mentor, nor did I think I needed one. I thought that was for people who were lazy. I thought I hated education because I hated school with a passion. I loved the students and I loved the activities, but I hated what they taught me in school. So I thought I hated school. I thought I hated education.
Okay.
So when I started my first business, all of a sudden I'm failing like miserably. And I'm basically spending what I'm making. So all of my income that was coming in was just, most of it actually had already gone back out. I was almost like reimbursing the losses. And so the business was working on me before it worked for me.
Okay.
And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people, especially young, because I was 20 years old, a lot of new entrepreneurs don't realize that when you start something, especially when you're bootstrapping, that the business may work on you for a while, and that is your true investment. It's not the capital that you necessarily have to put up. It's the sweat equity, right? So the business was working on me, and it wasn't working for me, and I didn't realize it was working on me until I started grasping for answers. And so I found an entrepreneur who lived in Mobile, which was, you know, a 30-minute drive from me. He started his first business when he was 21. Mega millionaire, 5 kids, beautiful family, passionate about life and education, and just, you know, a guy that was in his 40s rocking it, and he started when he was 21. So I said, hey, I would love to just get some feedback from you on what it is that I need to be working on. And so I met with him, and it was a turning point in my life. Everything that he said, I disagreed with. But he planted seeds, and he was 100% right. And over the course of about 6 or 8 months, that changed everything. And literally probably 5 months after I met with him, I actually quit my job and went full time.
Okay.
What was
Never
that?
had a job.
What was that business that you went full time in?
That business, I was actually in the network marketing profession. So my first business was with a company called Legal Shield. And they were about a $350 million company at the time. They're about a $4 billion company today. And they basically sell legal subscription plans for individuals and business owners.
Okay, I gotcha.
So that's
What made you want to pick that career path?
Well, I didn't want to pick that career path.
It picked you.
It kind of picked me. I mean, it was supposed to happen. I do believe that. I do believe that God had that as a stepping stone in my life. But what interested me was it was something that I saw that came across my way that I believed people would want and need. I felt like there was a need. Like my parents at the time, they'd been married for like 20-something years, and they didn't have an up-to-date will.
Okay.
Because I asked them.
A lot of people don't as well.
Exactly. And I'm like, well, they would want that. And if they could get that for $1 a day instead of $1,000 at the attorney's office, like, I think they would buy this. And so that's why I got excited, was I saw that, hey, I think this will work. I think people would want this and could use it.
So that was almost like passive income coming in a way?
Well, it turned into a passive income. That's a great question.
Work there, yeah, but
Yeah, at the beginning, I mean, you start out as a self-employed individual. So, if you don't kill, you don't eat, right? So it's like basically a commission sales job. So for me, that's what I was struggling with, is that I didn't have any influence. I was 20 years old. I was a college student, which within 7 months, changed my degree from architecture to business, quit my job, went one more semester for business school, hated it, dropped out. So I didn't have any education behind me for influence. I was 20 years old. My parents, although they're great parents, they didn't have any influence, so I couldn't borrow theirs because my mom was a nurse and had started a specialty pharmacy to help children with special needs. And my father worked in the oil industry and started an environmental company, so they didn't have any influence that I could pull from.
Okay.
So I struggled. I really struggled and had to work on myself a lot to become the person that could go out there and lead with confidence. I didn't have any business confidence then. It was brand new to me.
It took you about 6 to 8 months to really have it start paying off with your mentor. And did you just have one mentor at the time? Or did you start reaching out to several other people and say, help me, help me, help me? Or you put all your faith and energy into one mentor?
Well, I put I learned some things from him. So let me go back to meeting with him in Mobile because I quickly got more mentors. Because one of the biggest things that I realized is that I actually needed one. Mm-hmm. At first, I just wanted to meet with him because I wanted to figure out what the heck I'm doing so I can actually make some money so I have less financial pressure. Because I was not considering changing, quitting my job was at the time not what I was looking to do. Remember, I was just trying to supplement my income because I knew I was going to go to a major university to study architecture. So I needed the income coming in. It wasn't until the income was coming in that I fell in love with business and decided to quit my job and to change my degree and then drop out the following semester.
Okay.
But
how old were you?
I was 20.
Okay, so put this into perspective. Most 20-year-olds, when somebody tells them to do something, they just say, you can't tell me what to do. I know everything. It takes a lot of humility, vulnerability, to actually ask somebody for help.
100%.
And that's something that everyone struggles with, especially, being 20 years old as a man. It's hard to ask for help. It really is. So one takeaway from this is don't be too prideful to ask for help. And how old was this guy?
Probably 45.
So he had double the life experience that you did. And what in your gut told you, I need to listen to him?
His car and his house.
That's valid.
I mean, how I pick mentors today is very different. But, back then when I was 20, he has the money.
Okay.
And he's been in my shoes when he was 21, and I'm 20, and I'm failing. And he was a college dropout as well. So it was he knows something. He knows something that'll help me become successful, right?
So let's go down that rabbit hole. You got into Legal Shield, and you started getting some traction, I'm assuming. When did the aha moment kick in where you were like, I can scale this? This is an opportunity. I need to just double down on it.
So when that happened for me, I remember it like it was yesterday. Mm-hmm. One of my mentors was telling me all the checklist of disciplines I needed to do on a daily basis to be successful.
Okay.
And I was doing 9 out of 10. Mm-hmm. The 10th one was personal and professional development. He told me to read 10 pages of a personal development book every day. And I was doing the other 9, but I was not doing the 10th one.
Okay.
And then it dawned on me, I was like, you know what? If I'm going to fail, it's going to be because I did it all, Not because I did 90%, because then there's a reason I failed, and it's going to be my fault. This cannot be my fault. Like, I'm going to do exactly what these guys tell me to do, 100%. And so I'm going to read this stupid book, right? So I remember this was back when we didn't have Amazon. So I went to the bookstore and got a book and read that book. I started it thinking I was going to read 10 pages, and I read the whole book in 2.5 days.
Do you remember the book?
I do. The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson.
Good book.
It's very similar to The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, basically the same concept. And that book opened my eyes, and I learned things about how life works. So then I thought, well, what's the next book? And the only other book I could remember that they had recommended was Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And I read that in 2.5 days. And after that, it was game over. Like, I don't even know how many books I've read since then in the last 15 years. I always have my head in a book, like books, podcasts, mentorships, programs. I've invested well over 6 figures in public speaking skills, finding the best of the best on the planet to help me with that. I'm part of so many different coaching programs. Like, I'm so passionate about education now because I understand what self-education can do. It's unreal, right? So that was the turning point for me. When I got there, I saw the world through a different set of eyeballs than what I had before. Like, I had fundamentally changed my philosophy so much on how money works, how cash flow works, how investing works, how taxes work, how people work, how building networks work, how wealthy people think. It's such a different world than the 20-year-old construction worker that started. So from 20, 7 months later, I quit my job and went full-time. Still wasn't making much money, but I was making enough to quit my job. I probably quit too soon, to be honest with you. I should have given it a few more months of consistent cash flow because of the ups and downs you can have in business. So it was rocky. But within a year, within 13 months, I was the youngest executive in that $350 million company.
And to put that into translation for people, what does an executive make on average?
I wasn't making that much because I was young.
You're 20 though.
I was 20. So I was making about $6,000 a month.
So $6,000.
And this was 15 years ago.
$72,000 a year at 20 years old.
15 years ago.
15 years ago.
I'm 35 now.
Is huge for being 20. Putting this into perspective.
And not having a job.
And
I was free as a bird. I got to work out when I wanted to. I got to wake up in the morning, whatever time I wanted to. I got to do what I wanted to. I didn't have to report to anybody. I didn't have to ask for time off. I could work remotely.
Okay. Could you agree with this? Because I've told him this. The moment my life changed was when I started earning about $75,000 a year passively. My quality of life just hit a peak. I could wake up, go to the gym at 10 a.m., go to the beach right after, and do whatever I want pretty much. If I wanted to work, I could. If I didn't want to work, I didn't have to. About that $75,000 mark is when life got really comfortable. Could you agree with that?
I can agree with that depending on the person.
Depending on the person.
That's what I said.
So if you're making $75,000 a year and you're spending 110,
bad.
you're not going to have much freedom, and you're not going to last.
For the average person, though, $75,000 a year, as long as you have a little bit of financial discipline, is going to make your quality of life. Nowadays, though, with inflation, it might be 125. It very much might be. I always thought $75,000 a year was a happy medium. So tell me this: you're 20 years old. You're making $6,000 a month without even having a schedule. Did you get the passive income laziness? You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
When you start getting the passive income and you're like, I don't have to work anymore.
Well, and it's sneaky.
It's very sneaky.
It's sneaky because, it's Parkinson's law. Mm-hmm. Parkinson's law states that the amount of time that you allot for a task, it will take. It's the reason why you get so much work done the day before vacation. It's because you have to get these things done before you leave the house for a week. They have to be done. You have to do all these different things. So you're mega productive. Whereas if you allowed yourself an additional week, right, you'd get those things done instead of in a single day. You'd get it done over the course of a week.
Right.
And so what happened when I had passive income coming in is I got busy, which felt productive because I hadn't quite learned the productivity that I know now.
Right.
And so that was part of my laziness too, was unintentional, not even knowing that some of the things that I did in my spare time that made a full-time income that allowed me to quit my job now took a whole day to complete, but I had all day to do it. So it was not that I was actually lazy, so to say. It's that I didn't understand productivity enough to be smart with my time. So I would take what should have taken 2 hours a day and make that 8. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So yes, partially lazy because you have, when you when you roll over
And you get a check.
and you
Yeah.
don't have to roll out, right? You roll over in the bed and you see a commission check bigger than what your bills are going to be, then you can kind of roll over and go back to sleep instead of rolling out of bed and going to work, right?
That is something I've said to a lot of people. One of the best and worst things that ever happened to me at 23 was becoming financially free with passive income. It just took my productivity, my hunger, my drive, and the moment I hit where I wanted to be, it was just like off. I spent a year just doing nothing but riding jet skis and just traveling, which is nice, being 23, being able to do that. But it was almost like my drive to work just got cut until I realized that wasn't sustainable. At the end of 23, I was like, I have enough money for me. I got into a relationship. I didn't have enough money for us, which means I don't have enough money for a family. And then the gears started, turning again after that. But I 100% respect that you were 20 years old making $6,000 a month.
It was wild. I mean, especially to go from making $405 a week in my paycheck at construction.
Yeah.
And that's what I was making every single week, $405.
So let's fast forward. You're executive at 20. Let's fast forward to 23, 24. How many people do you have in your business? What tasks are you taking on? What do you think? Because you're not a day-to-day worker anymore. You are a full-time entrepreneur. Your life is different, but now you're a little bit more acclimated into it. So let's say 2 years down the road, what does Kevin's life look like?
So 2 years down the road, 23, I bought my first house that year.
Okay.
Which is exciting because I always wanted my own home, right? So
American
at 23 to do that was awesome. And it was a great house. I still own it today. I rent it out on Airbnb. But it was a great property that we bought. And that year, I believe when I was 23, I also turned around because I'm traveling the country at this point, teaching people how to build a successful business, which led to speaking engagements by accident because I was addressing audiences of various sizes all across the country, training people how to do what I was doing every day, how to scale, how to grow. And which is a wild thing because I almost failed public speaking in college. It was nerve-wracking. If you'd have told me then that I'd be, addressing audiences of up to 14,000 people in an arena, I would have told you you're smoking crack.
And they're probably older. They're probably twice your age too.
Yeah, just unreal. So anyway, I'm traveling the country, and a lot of people in the audience were entrepreneurs, part of associations, organizations, executive boards, nonprofits, you name it. So I start getting booked to do public speaking, which I didn't even really ever plan to do at that point, but people were requesting it, which is awesome. So I'd started that company. And then I had looked at my mom's business. So she had a specialty pharmacy treating children with bleeding disorders in Alabama. They had no website. They had no social media presence. They had no strong branding. They had opportunities to grow in different states that are around us because, as you know, where we live, we're just a stone's throw away of Florida and Mississippi.
Right.
And so I looked at that and I said, hey, I can help with all this. And, in my spare time, right, I can help with this. And so my official title was the director of marketing to help with that. And we did. I created a website, social media presence, brand new logos, all kinds of things for advertising and marketing, both tangible and digital. And we expanded in multiple states and grew that tremendously. And then we had people issues because now you have, and this is one of the things I love to teach entrepreneurs today, is that, who is your core team? Who are you building your core team with? When you have a smaller company, doesn't mean in revenue, it doesn't mean in profitability, but when you have a smaller company in terms of your staff, you may have a single level of leadership. It may not be multi-tiered. Whereas if you're building a business that has complexity to it and you're scaling it big, you may have your C-level individuals, and then you have your manager level individuals who are overseeing departments, and then you have individuals that are actually doing the day-to-day tasks of the business.
Right.
So you have complexity there. So if you don't have the people skill, organizational skills, and understand how that dynamic works, you need to hang out with somebody who does.
Yes.
And so when I looked at the company, it's man, we have enough nurses where we need a director of nursing. We have different areas where we have different offices now across the state of Alabama and now into Florida. So now we have different laws in different states. The business gets more complex as it's growing. So I helped with all of that and eventually became the director of operations. So I was the director of operations, director of marketing, then the director of operations and marketing, and then the vice president, and then we sold the company. So that was kind of the path there over maybe a 8 or 9 year period of time.
That's a lot.
Yeah. So at 23, and I did a lot more in that period of time as well. But that's what happened with that one company. But that's what it looked like at 23 for me. So I was traveling the country, teaching people how to do what I was doing, scaling my business, started working on that business and bought my first house.
So here's something that I just remembered. You said your second book was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Did you ever think that when you were reading that book, you were going to be sharing a stage with the author of that book, Robert Kiyosaki?
Dude, I've never gotten over the fact that actually came true. Like, I had no idea, no earthly idea. Like, I hoped, at that point in my life, I hoped to just meet him.
Yeah.
No idea we'd be speaking at the same conferences.
I share the same goal. My big turning point was when I listened to a Grant Cardone podcast. And to hear that you've shared the stage with Grant Cardone, one of my first mentors, that's where I want to be later in life. And it's a lot harder to be on stage with him now. Very much harder. Guy's a multi-billionaire now. But that has been one of my personal goals, is to be on stage or just to see Grant Cardone and shake his hand and say, you're the reason why I am where I am today. A quick 5-minute segment of a podcast that you did that was probably 20 pages into your YouTube search history, like search field, like feed. What did you really, was that your I made it moment when you were on stage with Robert Kiyosaki? Your moment where you really felt the weight of all of your work? You started eating the fruits from the seeds that you planted, pretty much.
Definitely a surreal moment.
Okay.
It's difficult for me to answer the I made it moment. I still feel like I'm on the side of the mountain climbing.
Good answer. There had to be a moment where you recognized a shift in your life.
There
maybe not I made
was.
it, but I'm on the right path.
Yeah, there definitely was. Like, I remember writing in my journal of a guy that I worked with at the time in Legal Shield. His name is Brian Carruthers. And, you know, Brian, his brother and his father built the largest real estate company in the East, had over 1,000 agents, did over $1 billion in sales, sold it to Merrill Lynch. And Brian is one of the highest paid income earners on the planet in the network marketing profession. And so he was a $1 million earner, like when I met him, like 15 years ago, just in that one business. And I had a goal. I remember writing out that he would ask me to train at a national convention. And I never told him that goal because I wanted him to ask me, not because I wrote it down, but because I wanted to become the person that could share so much value that he would say, hey, Kevin, will you, be one of the speakers at the national convention? And I'll never forget the day that he called me and asked me if I would train. He wanted me to train with him.
Ooh.
So it was almost like a level up of what my original goal. It wasn't just being a trainer. It was, he wanted to train with me on stage. And that was definitely an I made it moment, if I've ever had one. He may not be as big of a name as Grant Cardone, even though they're great friends. But it was definitely something to have written that down and to have that come to fruition was like, whoa. This whole visualization thing is like, it's wild. This can actually work. You know what I mean? Yeah. It was neat.
So speaking on I made it, and you said you were climbing the mountain, what does the top of the mountain look like for you? Like, what do you ultimately want to be remembered as?
I want to be remembered as somebody that was fascinated with building God's kingdom and not my own. Very different answer than the Kevin of 15 years ago.
When did that flip? When did you flip that switch in your brain? Like, what made that?
It's gradually flipped for 15 years. Okay. It's gradually flipped for 15 years. I mean, I'm more passionate about that now. I have more ministry goals this year than I've ever had. I have more giving goals this year than I've ever had before. And it's just it's a journey, right? So my faith is definitely a journey. I think anybody's faith, whether they share the same faith as mine or not, it should be a journey. It should be something that you intentionally grow, right, every single day. And so for me, that's what I want to be remembered for. I want people to say, man, Kevin was alive. He was spontaneous. He was unpredictable. He was on fire. He loved people. He served hard. And he gave his life to God and was focused on God's kingdom and not just his own.
If it makes you feel any better, I don't know you as anything else other than that. Personally.
Dude, that's the best compliment I can ever get.
I find that interesting. I think it's a different take. What are you doing currently to make that come true?
Yeah, so it's a great question. First of all, I read my Bible every single day. Passionate about that. I'm part of multiple different men's ministries, so I'm always discipling people, working in groups, which pours a lot into me, by the way. So this is not just like Kevin serving people like through, expanding the kingdom of God. Yes, that's my objective, but it pours into me too, to surround myself by men that I want to be like. And the reason why that's so important, and you've talked about it on podcasts and different episodes and on social media, you're a big proponent of this. You and I have agreed on this since as long before we met each other. And that is that you become like the people that you spend the most time with. And we all have a propensity to do things that don't serve us well long term. So I fully believe that like one day when I pass away, I'm going to be held accountable for my actions, right? I'm going to be asked, I'm going to have a life review moment where God's like, hey, what's going on here? What happened here? Like, you did great here. And this is, that doesn't mean that I'm going to be condemned for that, but I do think that I'll go before God and have my life review. But here's the thing that we never think about. Like, if someone listens to this, they may agree with that, or they may totally disagree and say, I don't even believe in a God. It doesn't matter. If you are actually on your deathbed one day, you're going to have your own life review. And you're going to have to ask yourself these questions, whether you believe in God or not. And that is, did I live? Did I love? Did I serve? Did I matter? Right? That's all from Brennan Burchard. And it's like, am I doing something that has significance, or am I doing something that's just successful? Because most people that will ever hear this talk cannot say right now as they're listening who their great-great-grandfather was. They can't even tell me his name, much less what he did for a living.
That is a good point.
So for us to be so bold and ignorant to think that my great-great-grandchildren, like what if my grandchildren spoil all the money? Right? So if I go make $1 billion, okay, great. How do I know that that's going to be preserved? And people say, well, there's asset planning, there's all this kind of stuff. My point is this, is that there's a difference between success and significance. I do want to be successful. I do want to grow my net worth. I do want to help people. I do want to be known to make a difference. But that's not the real legacy that I'm going to leave behind. The legacy is what I'm going to leave in people. Because that can transfer from them to their children, to their children's children, regardless of their finances.
You're planting seeds.
Planting
mentally
seeds that
and
matter.
spiritually.
Yeah, planting seeds that matter. I'm not taking any of my possessions with me. My days are numbered.
Dude, that's an interesting take. If I was to ask you to define success, I think this would be interesting to hear. How would you define just success? Not you, just success to you. What does it mean to you?
Yeah, significance.
Significance?
Yeah, and significance is irrelevant. It's a very general statement. Like, what is significance, right? It's leaving an impact in people. Well, what is an impact in people? Well, to me, it's first and foremost is their actual soul. What happens to them. I mean, if I help somebody become successful and they buy a Ferrari, it's amazing. But if they, one of the biggest things that we ask ourselves is we ask ourselves what our goals are. Like most of the people that you influence that listen to this, they're ambitious people, right? Yes. They're either crushing it in business or want to crush it in business, right? I mean, that's the audience, yes. Right? So I understand like who we're talking to here. These are ambitious, hardworking, people that are passionate about education, want to take it to the next level. And that's great, but like where are you actually going? And not only do you know where you want to go, do you know what you're not willing to sacrifice? And most people can't answer that. So what happens is they get on this grind and they go out there with their ambition and their talent and their education and they're doing all the things, right? They're doing all the things and they're crushing it, but they didn't realize that they never pinpointed what they weren't willing to sacrifice. They say, I'm willing to sacrifice sleep. I'm willing to work hard. I'm willing to extend the hours. I'm willing to work on weekends. Great. Are you willing to give up your marriage? Are you willing to raise a child who doesn't know you? Like, these are the questions that we have to ask ourselves and say, hey, I know what I'm willing to sacrifice to hit this goal. Because you can't hit a goal that you don't sacrifice for, right? If you don't sacrifice for your goals become the sacrifice. I mean, that's just the law. That's just the way that it works. But you got to also ask yourself, what am I not willing to sacrifice? So for me, those are the rocks that I put into my schedule first. I'm not willing to build my own kingdom at the expense of making God's kingdom the priority. Ever. It's a value for me that I just will not cross. So if I say, oh, well, I've got this men's ministry event, but I've got this business thing, so I can't go, whose kingdom is more important? It's pretty easy to see based on my choice, right? I don't want to live a life of insignificance where I did the business deal, but I didn't do the men's ministry. I choose ministry first. And it's interesting because God will bless me with the deal.
So was there any event in your life that kind of made you gravitate more towards God, or have you always been very godly, very religious?
No, I definitely have not. I was raised in church. But I think too many of us just check that box that, oh yeah, I go to church, I'm a spiritual person, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not knocking that, but it's a daily relationship. And for me, I didn't have that. I had God in my back pocket. I was running my life. I was the CEO of KEVIN. I was building the enterprise of KEVIN, and I went to church on Sunday. That was my faith 15 years ago. And that first mentor, one of the things that he asked me was, I read my Bible every day. I came to him for business advice. He asked me if I'm reading the Bible every day. And I'm like, no, dude, like I just told you my schedule. Like I'm running a construction crew all day long. I'm in classes all night long. I haven't studied throughout the week, so that's Saturday. Sunday, I go to church. And once I'm successful, I'll have the time to invest in some of these things that you're talking about. And I'll never forget what he said. He said, you sound like, well, the three things he told me: are you working out every day? Are you reading personal development every day? And are you reading your Bible every day? Three things I didn't have time for.
Mental, physical, and spiritual growth.
You got it. And when I said, look, with all due respect, like I want to amplify those things in my life, but here's where I'm at. Here's what my schedule's like. When I'm successful in business, I'll be able to do those things. I'll never forget what he said. He said, you sound like a farmer who says once he has a harvest, he'll start planting seeds. And that just stabbed me in the gut. I could not get that analogy out of my head.
I'm going to borrow that.
And it took months, but within months, within about 60 days probably, I was working out just about every day. I was reading personal development every day, and I plugged into a men's Bible study. Average age of that group with me factored in at 20 years old was still probably 72.
Jeez.
These are some old wise dudes.
We follow a very similar path, and I think that's why I've been so magnetized towards you over the past, would you say, we've been friends now for about 8 years, probably 7 years?
Something like that.
We walk a very similar path. When I was 20 years old, I was doing a lot of the same activities you were, but with real estate. And I've always noticed that you put people first. Your relationships are the most important to you. And I follow a very similar path. I try to put everybody else around me equal or ahead of me. I want to make sure everybody else eats. I want to make sure everybody else grows with me. I want to surround myself with people that deserve to eat at my table too. And I think you've done a very fantastic job at that. I don't think there's many people, if any, that have anything negative to say about KEVIN. I can't think of one thing. So your life of being godly, I think you're walking that path to the best of your ability.
I'm trying. I got a lot of room to grow. But that kind of goes back to what we were saying, earlier, is that, I want to be like, I don't have a top of a summit that I want to surpass. For me, I want to die on the side of the mountain. I want to be found climbing until I literally just die there. I want to be climbing on my faith. I want to be climbing on my finances. I want to be climbing in my health, my fitness, my marriage, relationship with my children. Like, that's why, I'm relentless, not because I have something that's different than somebody else in terms of being relentless. I just am not willing to sacrifice different areas of my life. I'm not going to sacrifice my health for Netflix. I'm not going to sacrifice business success, like my child's relationship with my son, for business success. I'm not going to sacrifice, anything for my spiritual faith. Like, these are things they're very important to me. So if I'm not going to sacrifice my physique, my health, my education, my finances and wealth, my impact in the world, my ministry, my marriage, my children, if I'm not going to sacrifice those things, what else do you have time for?
That's a very good question.
I can tell you what I don't have time for. Going to the bar. That's what I used to do all the time. I don't have time for it. So if people say, well, how are you so disciplined? Well, you don't have time for it. It's pretty simple, right? Like, if you're exhausted at the end of the day, it's pretty easy to sleep. I don't need anything to help me sleep. I just need a pillow, man. And I'm out, like, at the end of the day, because I lay it all out on the field. And that's what I want to be known for, is like, man, KEVIN was intentional in everything that he did. He loved people, but he gave his all. If he was going to do a task, didn't mean he wasn't going to fail. I've got a list of failures, right? I stack them up. They're almost like trophies. But it doesn't mean I'm not going to fail. It just means that, like, I'm going to leave it all out on the field. Like, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. Doesn't mean it's going to work, but KEVIN's going to give it his all.
I respect that. You said something that really popped out to me too. You started your weeks on the rocks, the three rocks. So it was like your family, your ministry. How do you plan your week? Because this is something that Alex and Layla Hormozy do. They prioritize their fitness first. So when they break down their schedule, they put their workouts, they put their meal plans, and then they base their business around that. So that is a very good question to ask yourself. Where are your my biggest excuse that I hate hearing is I don't have time.
Oh yeah.
But not in the way that you're talking. It's like, oh, I don't have time to go to the gym. It's like, what are you doing? Let me see your screen time. Pull up your iPhone. You spent 4 hours on Facebook today. Prioritizing your fitness, your health, your social life, your business in whichever order, or your faith. How do you personally prioritize your schedule?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I have a whole system for it that's quite in depth.
Can you summarize it?
I can summarize parts of it for sure. I'll try to summarize as best as I can. But yeah, it's first of all is identifying like where you really want your life to be in 10 years. And if you don't want to be a fat slob, you better put some health stuff in your calendar. You know, one of the things I tell clients all the time is this, like if you give me your calendar, give me access to your calendar, don't tell me what your goals are. I'll tell you what your goals are. And if they don't align with the activities that you have in your schedule, then you're lying to yourself. Because like if you want to be in better shape, but you don't have it in your calendar, you're just trying to fit it in. You're a human. You're not going to be able to fit it in. It's not going to fit. You have to put it in the calendar, right? Same thing with your marriage. Like I want a marriage that's freaking rocking. You know what I'm saying? And it is. 10, 11 years later, like, you know, life's great. I still date her as hard as I did when I met her. Why is that? Because I'm intentional. I put it in my calendar. I have reminders that let me know, hey man, like right now, the time of this podcast, like Valentine's is just around the corner. It's January, February is going to creep up. Like, what are your plans? Hey, your anniversary, what are your plans? What are you doing every week with your spouse? What are you doing on the weekends? When does she have extra spare time? How can we enjoy something together with that? Like, I'm so intentional in putting those things in my calendar. So, I mean, that's the first thing is that you have, you know, your unsacrificable things that align with your values and who you want to be. Those go in your calendar first. And then you build everything else around that. And then for me, one of the couple of different tactics that I have that may be helpful to the listeners is that I get up at 5 a.m. in the morning, right? And I have above that at 4 a.m. blocks of things that I can slide into my calendar. So when I see them at the top of my schedule, like I can actually grab them and slide them. Another thing that I do in my calendar is I make sure I have time for margin. And what that is, there's a reason why you have the best ideas in your life in the shower. There's a reason. The reason is it's the only place that you go to that you're doing a routine that you already know, because most people have an actual routine. Like you get in the shower the same, and you have a routine that you run, right?
Right.
So you run the routine. You don't have to think about it because you do the same thing every time that you get in the shower, and you have no distractions. So you have whatever amount of time it takes you in the shower to do nothing but just think. And all of a sudden you get this great idea. We used to also have great thinking time on the toilet until people started bringing their phones. And so now they're preoccupying their minds so much they don't have thinking time. They don't have thinking time. Like I get some of my best ideas when I'm running. Why is that? Because I don't have to think about running. I get to actually just think while I'm running. So that's one reason why I'm passionate about the terrain run stuff that I do. It's not that I actually like running. It's that it's a healthy thing for me. And there's a lot of health benefits from it, but then I also get some clarity like thinking time. I build in buffers and, you know, margin in my calendar every single day. I don't sacrifice that time because I need that time to be able to just think about life. Where am I headed? What are my values? What do I have on my agenda? Am I just busy in the whirlwind, or am I actually on the path to the person that I said I wanted to become? And it gives me time to really evaluate everything every day. So that's one thing I put in my calendar as well.
We've been discussing, we have 2 employees now that work with us. We were talking about taking them on a nature hike come Friday, and I really think we need to make that a part of our schedule. We have a group workout from 3 to 4. It's non-negotiable. Like the whole team pretty much works out. Everybody that's on board with social media pretty much. I think we really need to implement that and do like a weekly either bike ride, nature walk. You know, it's the winter time, so it gets a little hard. But I really think that's important for just stimulating positive energy, positive you're right. When I've went on a couple of runs with you, not the most successful. I'm not the best with cardio, but the conversations that we have, just the mental stimulation is almost fluid. It's just no effort whatsoever. Same thing when I'm snowboarding, same thing when I'm riding jet skis, same thing when I'm surfing. The mental just roadblocks just go away. It's almost like there's no static. I can just focus. And I think that's something we've been struggling with lately. Me and him have been putting in crazy hours lately. I'm getting to the point where I'm getting mental roadblocks, which means we're not being physical enough.
Physical, and then you need margin. We need
Yes.
margin, not just on physical, but then you just need some time to be able just to think. If what I said is true, if you agree with what I said, that a lot of people get their best ideas in the shower, imagine if they took an hour-long shower every day, which is possible, whatever. But just to have an extra hour of not having to do anything but think. Like most people don't they think more about their vacation than they do their life.
Right.
They use time to plan a vacation more than they use time to plan their life.
100%.
And it's like, no wonder 10 years goes by and you're in the same spot you were 10 years ago.
People don't have a lot of direction, so they don't know where to go.
Yeah,
They hit a target that they didn't even know they made.
And remember Parkinson's law. We just fill up our calendar. We just fill it up. Like, oh, I'm busy. I got kids and I got a wife and I got their games and I've got my job and it's like, yeah, and if you don't get intentional quick, guess what you're going to be saying 10 years from now? Oh, I'm busy because I got a wife and I got kids and I got, kids is not a disease, by the way. People are like, I got kids. Like that's cancer or something. It's like, dude, that's not a disease. Like you can have kids and have an absolute amazing life and a relationship with them if you're intentional. And then you have to sacrifice, and you need to identify what you're not willing to sacrifice.
Right.
And those are important things.
Was that a big change for you having kids? I imagine it took a lot more time.
Yes, it is. You can prepare to have children, but you cannot be prepared.
How many do you have?
I have one.
Just one right now?
Just one, yeah.
Gotcha.
And he's a little over a year old. He's awesome. It's amazing to watch his brain grow and develop, So cool to watch him learn new things. It's just amazing. The whole process is a miracle. But yeah, so it changes everything. It changes a lot. The first thing it changes when you have a child is your sleep. So you don't get any of that.
Sounds like a fun time. If
That's
you were to
birth
kind of
control.
go ahead.
No, that's birth control for our younger viewers.
Yeah, it will change.
You
everything.
can prepare for the kid. Maybe don't rush that in life. Be very, very prepared. Don't just accidentally have one.
Yeah.
Mess up the course of your life real quick.
Yes. One of the beautiful things about our marriage, we were married 10 years before we had a child. You think about most people, they just rush into it. In Dubai, it was one of my favorite places to go on a vacation. We went to Dubai. We stayed in the tallest hotel in the world, went to the tallest tower in the world, visited the largest floral arrangement in the world, went to the largest mall in the world, we played like two kids, my wife and I, a few years ago. And it was amazing to go to Dubai and just see the culture there and to hear about before they ever struck oil, what Dubai was like. And it was a very, poverty-stricken, country. And individuals there, the biggest bulk of work were pearl divers. So they would hop on these boats and go out, and they would dive for pearls, not using modern dive equipment. Okay, this is old school stuff. Yeah, and they would dive like 30 to 50 dives a day, if I remember correctly, diving for pearls. And on the boat, they would be singing songs to keep themselves motivated as a group of men, and then go down there and dive. And it was very, very dangerous. A lot of guys lost their life. A lot of guys had permanent illnesses and damages and that kind of stuff from doing that. And then the country struck oil, and they believed it was a gift from God. And to this day, it's my understanding that if you're from Dubai and you get married in Dubai, that Dubai will give you a piece of land to build a home. They will give you a sum of money, and they would give you 1 year off to spend with your bride. You have a 1-year honeymoon to get to know them.
Dubai's a magical place from what I've seen.
And what do we do here? What do we do here?
I don't want to answer that.
What do we do here is we have a husband and a wife, or they're engaged, right? They get married. The average, they both work, so they're working their tail off. Then they've got all this debt for the ring. So homie goes out and buys a ring he can't afford. That may have gone on a credit card, by the way. And then they're both working their tail off, and they plan this wedding. It's going to cost, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $5,000, just depending. And then all of a sudden they go rush and they get time off to go on a honeymoon and they're gone for 3, 4, 5 days, maybe 6 or 7. And they come back and it's time to go back to work. And then they find out months later they're expecting. So then they have a child and it's like they never got to know each other.
Yeah. It all boils down to societal norms. That's one thing I've been like looking into a lot recently, is that as you've like read all these books, you know, traveled and stuff, is that one thing that's really kind of piqued interest in your brain, like how different culturally the world is, and just like it makes you look at things so much differently.
It makes you look so much differently. And there's so many things to like glean and learn, you know, from the cultures that are out there. I mean, just like in Dubai, like the men's robe that they wear, it's got this long strand. They're old traditional ones. It's got this old strand. And when they would travel and go pearl diving, do those things, they would dip it in their wife's perfume. So when they were gone for several weeks or months or whatever, if they were ever sexually tempted, they could smell that. Isn't that cool?
That's very cool.
It's just neat. You know, cool things to know. But yeah, culture is definitely amazing. I mean, there's no place like on the planet I don't want to see.
Yeah, same.
You know,
here,
like
same
my
here.
personal motto is they asked to see my office, so I showed them the world. You know, I want to live by that. Like, where's Kevin? You know, I think it's great. Like when I get on Zooms with people regularly, like clients, they're like, where are you now? I'm like, I love that question. You know, where am I
we just
now?
had
Where am
that
I
talk.
going now? You know?
I asked him that on the first podcast. I said, "Where's your office right now?" And he just pulled up his phone, pretty much.
Yeah. That, and then like today I brought the RV, you know, because I love to run at Graham Creek, as you know, and I had a lot of business meetings today, and I'm like, well, I'm going. Well, where am I going to shower? I was like, I'll shower in the RV. So I just drove the RV down here.
No excuses.
No excuses.
Where's Kevin? You know, he's at his home and his office at the same time.
There you go.
Today he brought both.
That's right. You got it.
So let's get into some critical thinking questions. If you could go back to yourself at 20 years old and offer a little bit of advice, what would you give yourself in about, say, a minute or less?
Oh, gosh, man. I would say, look, man, who are you? Who are you? And look at your thumbprint.
Okay.
God made you on purpose and for a purpose, and he gave you a talent and a gift. And you have time to explore that and to develop that gift for the world. Do not get pulled into making a living or finding a way to make money. Focus on what God created you to be and be that.
Okay.
And then the second thing is, I would say, compare yourself to yourself and not anybody else.
Okay.
Because you only lose when you're looking around other people and then you see that they're further ahead. And it's like, no, if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, then all you need to compare yourself with is who you were yesterday. And if you're progressing, you're going in the right direction. If you compound that over a decade, you can become world class.
I like that. All right. Now I'm going to get a little bit deeper. If you could go back to yourself at 20 years old and give yourself one bit of advice financially, what would that be?
It would be to focus on income producing assets only.
Okay.
And that you build a business to make the money to buy assets. You don't build the business to make the money to buy things. So it'd be simple. Basically to invest.
Okay.
That's what that boils down to, is like, hey, don't just go make the money and upgrade your car and your clothes and your suit and all that great stuff. That's cool. But what's cooler is to be on a trajectory of building so many assets that you can buy whatever you want, but you're not buying anything. Your assets are buying it.
I did that on accident, buying real estate. I didn't even realize I was doing it. God blessed me with a wonderful accident. And I realized that my rent checks were paying for every liability and my commission checks were paying for more rental properties to buy more liabilities. I did that by accident. So, okay, so let's take this another step further. If you could go back to yourself at 20 years old and give yourself one bit of advice, now physically, towards your physical health, what would it be?
To study health and not fitness.
That's a bit
I feel
too
attacked.
deep. You might have to
feel attacked.
sum that one up for the viewers.
Man, so I want to be a functional human being. So the workouts I do today are very different than the workouts I did 15 years ago. 15 years ago, I wanted to look great. And there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. It's a lot better than not looking great, right? So if we look at the opposite. But today, everything I do is around like being a functional human being, where if I want to go play tackle football with my son, like I don't have to worry about an injury any more than I would when I was, you know, in my prime, so to speak. Like I feel like I'm in my prime now. And I certainly can do things physically now that I couldn't have done whenever I was 20, by the way. I looked like a beast. Mm-hmm. And I did have a lot of functional strength because of the rigorous construction work that I did. I mean, toting shingles up a ladder,
Right.
on your shoulders. I mean, it was hard physical work. I mean, we worked our tails off on that job. Like, it was crazy. So I was in good shape, but I was eating trash.
Mm-hmm.
So on the outside, I looked great. On the inside, there's just no telling. Like, I was eating garbage. I was not giving I mean, you wouldn't buy a Ferrari and put mud in the gas tank. You can get another car. You're not going to get another body. And we put mud in our gas tank. We don't give our body the fuel it needs. And we're worth so much more than a Ferrari.
That is a good point.
So, today, like, I'm more focused on that. Like, what am I eating for energy and for health, or am I eating for pleasure because I've worked out so much I look good either way? No, doesn't matter.
Okay. I'm going to go one step deeper.
Okay.
If you could go back to yourself at 20 years old and give yourself one piece of advice socially, what would you say?
Like, relationally, like relationships?
Socially, friends, relationship, family.
Yeah.
As far as other people go.
Sure. I would say to study people. Study people. We're not all wired the same.
Okay.
As anybody knows. I mean, everybody knows that people are different. They're motivated by different things. They think different things. But I would go back and say that, study people. Look, if something were to happen and I got completely wiped out and I had to start over, the biggest asset I have, if it was taken, like, I don't have a home anymore, I don't have a business anymore, I don't have any money in the account anymore, the biggest asset I have are relationships. I mean, I feel like I'm almost bulletproof when it comes to that. I feel like I could call 100 people right now that would give me a 6-figure salary to work at their company. Why is that? Because of people skills. I've studied people for 15 years. And I build real relationships authentically, not to gain something. So this isn't like, hey, how to, cheat code for the world, like figure out how to manipulate people. No, it's about being a world-class individual, serving people. I can't tell you how many people I've helped with no intention to gain anything, and then 5 years later landed a huge deal because of someone they knew and they thought about me and hit me up. But I did something 5 years ago with no intention to gain anything, right? That's building relationships and serving people. And what a lot of people do in business is they try to build relationships with people that can help them. Oh, I'm going to talk to them because they have influence. I'm talk to them because they have money. There's nothing wrong with that. That's great. But if you love and serve people and build relationships, all that other stuff works itself out. So it's just like, serve people, study them, study how people work. People don't think just like you. People are motivated different ways. They think in different ways. And when you study people, guess what elevates? Not only your social skills for like networking, but your leadership skills. So if you have people skills, you can be a leader anywhere. I don't have to know the function of a company's widget that they build to be able to give value to their team. I'm valuable to a company that has people. And every company on the planet has people because they have customers. So even if it's not a huge company like, oh, they got 500 employees, cool, it could be one employee. All their customers are humans. So you're always going to need people skills. And if you study people skills and leadership, you're valuable to any organization on the planet.
I can 100% agree to that. Something that I've been actively working on is, how do people digest content? How do people hear your message? How do people relate to your message? How are they going to be able to process your message? That's something I've actively been working on too. So I'm glad you just validated that for me. So you think your most valuable thing in life right now in the physical world is your relationships?
I do. I
like
do.
that.
I believe it. If I literally lost everything, and I know it's so hard to like mentally take yourself there, like what would life really be like if you lost it all? I have people I can call. I just need a phone. So if I lost it all, man, let me borrow your phone.
So for the audience out there that probably may not be as, I guess you could say, genetically a people person like you, where would you go to learn people skills?
Well,
Is it repetition?
So I first of all, thank you. I appreciate that. I take that as a compliment. But that's not who I was 15 years ago. You have to understand, I was a very rigid, self-absorbed, arrogant, all about me human being 15 years ago. So that's the old version. I've grown since then, and I intend to continue growing. But I was not a people person back then. I was not a public speaker back then. I was not any of those things that you may see today. So, what I did, one of the best books you can read, it's the classics, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Horrible title, by the way. I hate the title of that book because it's really about becoming a world-class individual. Like, how do you love people? How do you listen to people? How do you serve people? How do you add value to people's lives? That's how you win friends and influence people. So it's got a catchy title, even though it's horrible. It's not a book on how to like get what you want out of people. That's what it sounds like to me. It's really like, again, just how to be a world-class human being. So how to win friends and influence people would be the start for sure.
Okay. I find that interesting. I feel like in today's day and age with social media and all that, a lot of people are just very anxious and keep to themselves. And I feel like that's something that everybody lacks is people skills these days. I mean, I lack it myself. I'm trying to do it, and I'm pushing myself being on this podcast. Like, I'm not a people person. I'm not good at talking, but it's interesting.
I think you're great at talking.
I'm getting better.
Just think about that multiplied times 10 years from now.
Yeah, hopefully.
I met him about 8 months ago. Probably wasn't a 15th as good as right now.
That's what I'm saying, man. That's epic.
I would attribute it to pushing myself like outside of my comfort zone. Is that something like? Is there any events in your life where you're like, I don't want to do this, but I know I need to?
Oh my gosh, like every day.
Really?
So I think it's important that we understand first layer consequences and second layer consequences and third layer consequences in everything that we do. So typically the second layer is the opposite of the first. So you may be like, what the heck are you talking about? What I'm talking about is pretty simple, actually. So your first layer consequence, like if you decide to go work out, is pain, discomfort, sweating. Like you don't want to do that. The second layer consequence is what you get from that. So what do you get from, how do you feel after you've done a workout and you recover? You feel amazing.
Yeah.
You feel clarity of focus. You feel like you're making things happen. It's just the opposite of what you actually, the first layer consequence. And then what's the third layer consequence? You start to get in better shape if you do that consistently. So now your confidence goes up. So every room that you walk into, you're a more confident person. And then all of a sudden you think you feel better, right? Your energy levels increase. And how does that affect your life? It affects it everywhere. Look at just the opposite. First layer consequence, watch Netflix. It's comfortable, it's fun, it's great, it's mindless work. Second layer consequence is that you just wasted that hour of your life. You can't get it back. You look at goals that you're missing, things that you're not doing in life, which does what? It depletes your confidence. It depletes your motivation to do the rest of everything else. So I literally, like there's part of my journal you can see in my Remarkable here that says, in big letters, it says, I do hard things. Because it's the hard things that you will do in life that gives you the freedom. I mean, I run these terrain races, which is painful. Like, I mean, I do it in crazy environments, crazy obstacles, crazy, temperatures outside, like you name it. And it sucks to do. A lot of people think I love all that stuff. No, I love who I become because of it. Like I do hard things, and it's the life that I get after doing those hard things that, we can control. If we do the hard things, life can be easy. If we just do easy things, life is going to be very hard.
So you've mastered delayed gratification.
I wouldn't say I've mastered it.
You have become far more proficient than the average person.
Probably.
Yes.
Compared to average, definitely.
Yes.
Yeah. Average is my enemy, by the way.
That is something that we've touched on a lot on this podcast is the importance of delayed gratification. Some of the best things I've ever done in life did not pay me at that exact moment. Let me repeat that. Some of the best things that I've ever done in life did not pay me in that moment. They didn't pay me a week later. Sometimes they didn't pay me for 6 months later. But me doing those acts pay me almost a decade later, whether that was buying real estate, developing a relationship, making the disciplines to get in the gym. Those things right there, I was making acts that I didn't believe that I was going to get paid anytime soon, and I was okay with that. Compounding those effects turned into just massive wealth and time freedom. So something I've been preaching for our team lately is we're not going to see results for 6 months, but you keep doing that over and over again. Every 6 months, your life quality is going to double.
Yeah,
multiply that for 5 years.
Makes me think of two things. One is Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn says, work harder than you get paid for to invest in your future. And that's the concept that you're talking about. The other one just reminds me of planting the tree. When's the best time to plant a tree?
Right now.
20 years ago. What's the second best time? Today. I've got a farmhand friend of mine that's like old school organic farmer. He's helping me out on our place. And there's a spot in the yard. He goes, oh yeah, we're gonna very soon, we're gonna plant a water oak right there for your son. And I just love that whole concept. Like, you know, Steve's in his 60s.
Mm-hmm.
So 20, 30 years from now, he'll be, you know, in his 80s or 90s, right? If he's still around. And he's like, no, we need to plant that because when DJ's 20, there's going to be a huge water oak right here. And I just, there's something about that that's just so cool. It's basically saying you're going to plant the seed, do the work today. You're not going to see anything for a long time, and it's cool. It's just how it works.
A lot of people complain about fruitless lives, but they didn't plant no trees.
Yep.
Do you guys think that's a generational thing? Y'all are a little bit older than me. And when I look at it now, like I'm just now starting to have these thoughts in my brain. I would say it's a problem because of social media, but like maybe 10 years, go back 10 years, was it the same way where people still not as forward thinking and they wanted stuff now? They wanted to get rich quick. They wanted the results tomorrow.
I don't think, you know, the same people have the same problems generation after generation after generation. I think laziness is just a human defect, maybe. I think that people's lack of direction is just a human defect. Social media definitely highlights it, but also social media speeds it up too. So people move a lot faster now. So I think, I get in this argument all the time where this is the laziest generation. I disagree with that. I think we're one of the most efficient generations. I think we're one of the smarter generations. I don't agree with we're the laziest generation. You just might see more lazy people now because you're on the internet.
Yeah, I can get on board with that. I think it's the lens you look through.
I think we're the most efficient generation to ever live.
What happens when you take an ambitious person who's a lion and you put them in a cage?
They're going to become docile.
They're going to become docile.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a big generation that looks at social media and they see, you know, what is social media? It's a highlight reel. People don't post their worst photo. They post their best. They don't post the photo of everybody yelling at each other in the family. They post the one with everybody smiling, right? That's what we do. It's a highlight reel. So people post their highlight reel. They're always trying to up that game, and that's what they compare their lives to. But what it's done is it's taken a younger generation who now has access to see that there's a world out there that they want to be a part of. And so when they go to their server job and they're, you know, serving burgers, they may display themselves as a lazy person, but it's because they have no opportunity there and they don't know how to get what it is that they actually want. So I think that there's a lot of that, you know. I mean, when 20 years ago, we didn't have social media to look at and see what was possible. I saw it first through a book. I mean, Rich Dad, Poor Dad was the thing that like showed me about like building assets and that, oh, people are going to say they own a business. No, they're not. They're self-employed. Well, I'm like, what do you mean? Like that's a business owner. Yeah, no. There's a big difference in being self-employed and being a business owner. And there's a big difference between a business owner and actually, you know, being an investor. Like these are very different things. Here's what they look like. And here's how you go from an employee to self-employed to a business owner to an investor. And it's like, oh my gosh, like that. But you can see that on social media. Like you can just follow you. It's like you're looking at real estate and you're looking at good times and people smiling and all that. It's like, dude, he has a life that I want, right? So people look at that and they go, well, how did he do it? And they study that content. And if they feel like they can't do that, which they can because you're teaching these concepts. But when we look at other people on social media, a lot of people that I think are ambitious appear to be lazy because they don't have the opportunity figured out yet. But once they find that, a lot of them are very efficient, very smart, like what you said, very fast. You know, we can get things done now. I mean, you couldn't go from zero to $1 billion company 15 years ago. That didn't happen.
Now.
And now you've got the internet and you've got social media and you've got more information. I mean, Google knows more about you than your own mama. I mean, and people can buy that information, which is kind of, you know, freaky, but it is what it is. Like we can grow faster now. We have access to things that our ancestors just did not have.
When you were, let's say 16 years old, how many people did you know around your age group that were millionaires? 100,000-aires.
Like zero?
Zero. Nowadays, you know how many 16 to 21-year-old millionaires there are?
Oh, there's
an insane amount.
Insane amount.
That's why when I hear this is the laziest generation, I'm like, we have people that are 14 to 18 years old, 16 to 18 years old, that are literally millionaires now from the work that they put on the internet.
Yep. 100%.
You know, your parents used to say those video games aren't going to pay you. And now we have Twitch streamers that are pulling in 6 figures a month.
It's insane, isn't it?
That aren't even out of high school yet. Can't even fathom that.
Yeah, you can't even argue with them. Kids like, I want to be a professional video gamer. You're like, right on. You know, you'd be like, dude, you know, get a life, right?
Turn the lights off. It's like, I pay the electricity bill here.
That's right. It's crazy. Crazy. And YouTubers and content creators. And
let me do one more little back-to-back firing session.
Sure.
Okay. If you could go back to being 20 years old right now in this exact moment, what career path would you pick? What would you do to grow your wealth right now? Looking through all the knowledge and information that you know right now, with the tools you have in 2023, what career path would you pick?
Well, if I was back 20 with the same parents, the same area, the same lack of resources.
You know what you know now.
And I know what I know now, and I was broke and didn't have anything because that's who I was when I was 20. I would probably start the things that I talked about on here in terms of like personal and professional development, like level up the game quickly.
Okay.
But as far as like a career path, I probably would go choose network marketing again.
Okay.
I think that is a great stepping stone for people like me who didn't have any capital.
Okay.
I didn't have 10 grand to put down on a thing or start something or buy some equipment or something. That or it would be some type of skilled labor company that I could scale and easily manage without having to be there, right? Obviously, if I didn't have any money, it'd start with me as a self-employed person and like pressure washing or something, soft washing. Like these are, jobs that don't take a whole lot of skill. It just takes some grit, but it's cash paying jobs. You line up 2 or 3 of those things a day, like you can replace a job. Dude, if you got somebody paying you $200 a thing and you're doing 3 of those a day, it's $600 cash a day. Like, can you not replace your job and go full time with that and then save some money and hire an employee and then go sell the jobs and line them up at $100 a pop? Yeah. And then up your equipment and hire another person, get another truck. Like, these are things you can do. You can stack it, you can scale it, you can grow it. And then I'd be smart with the money, use that money to expand that company with the goal of creating it as a passive asset that pays me so I can invest in other things. So I can buy a piece of real estate. So I can, go in a partnership with somebody on something, right? I mean, you need liquidity to take advantage of opportunities, right? So at first, if you don't have any liquidity, you may be listening to this, you still live at mom's house. Nothing wrong with that. You got to start somewhere. That's where I started, right? So find something you can do that you can scale up on the side as fast as possible to get out of your JOB if that's your goal. Get rid of that job so you can hyper-focus on that business and grow it. Don't blow the money. You don't need the new watch. You don't need the nice car. Does your car run? Awesome. It's an awesome car. Like, stick with that. Build up the company. And if you have cash in the bank, great. Go get more. And stack that up and then invest it in assets that can pay you. And that's the only path to freedom. Like, if you are not focused on building assets that can pay your living expenses, like, I don't know why you're listening to this podcast. Like, what are you doing? Listen to a different podcast.
Solid. Okay. So my next question is going to maybe tie into the first. You're back at 20 years old with what you know in this day and age. Where do you go to meet positive people?
Well, first of all, social media just gives you an unfair advantage. There are groups upon groups upon groups upon groups on anything. Anything. If you have an area of interest, there are people who have figured it out and they're on Facebook and they have different interest groups that you can be a part of. So, I mean,
millionaire in the making.
Yes, exactly. Prime example. We're talking about some of the highlights that helped me do what I've done in the last 15 years that we're doing in one podcast episode. Like, how we have so much access to information. So as far as education, YouTube is priceless. As far as getting around people, social media, it's pretty simple. Like, I used to would say networking groups and meetups and that kind of stuff. That's what I would have said years ago, which is still true to this day. You can do that. And I do think you need to meet people in your community. I think a lot of people don't have a mentor for one significant reason. They don't ask. A lot of people just don't ask. They say, oh, well, that person's busy. Well, they're busy. That doesn't mean that they're not willing. And, the Bible says you have not because you ask not. I believe that that's a huge proponent for mentorship. I think a lot of people look around and they go, oh, that person wouldn't want to talk to me. They wouldn't give me the time of day. They wouldn't want to meet with me. I don't want to bug them. Dude, bug them. You got one life. Get in touch with that person. The fastest way to get anywhere is to find someone who's been there, done that, and still doing it. If you want a shortcut, if you want a cheat code, that's it. Like, that is it. Like, you find somebody, if you're going to start a pressure washing company, find somebody that's got 10 trucks today. Not that they did it 10 years ago. That's awesome. That's a great mentor too. Find somebody who's in the industry today who has time freedom, who has 10 trucks, who started from scratch, and talk to them. Like, that is your shortcut. They know everything. They know about the equipment. They know about employees. They know about insurance. They've probably been sued, so they know what coverage they wish they had. Like, they have wisdom, and they can give you the map. It's like, I can tell you where to go in Dubai because I've been there. I can tell you exactly where to go at Graham Creek because I run there all the time. I can give somebody the map. They don't have to go study the junk. I can just say, hey, do this, and they can go do it, immediately, because I've been there, done that, and I still do it. So find people like that. Like, I am hyper focused on getting around some of the smartest people in the world that I can to learn from. And I've got some world-class people in my network now that are so far beyond me. They make what I do a hard task for me is like night work to them. It's like nothing. It's like a fly on the wall to them. So small. And they help me think different. And other people's resources are your resources. Others people's time, their time is your time. Like, you can borrow these things. You can collateralize these things. You can use these things. If you don't have money, there's somebody with money that's out there, right? So, I mean, if you're going after something, you need the actual, like, product or service skill to create it, right? You need an actual audience of buyers, potential buyers, and you need reach, the ability to reach those people. If you have 2 or 3 out of those 3, and you can borrow somebody else's in that third category you may be missing, you've got everything that you need to build a business.
That's a bomb.
That's so good. I can be the case study for this. I'm literally sitting in the room with these two right now. Flashback 6 months ago, I was in the same mindset. Nobody wants to talk to me. No, they're mean. They're richer than me. Like, literally case study right here, guys. If you just ask, never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, most people won't ask.
They really
so
won't.
We assume, and I know because I was one of those people. Like, I assume like someone who's massively successful is too busy for me, and they have too many other people that are asking them for their time. And then now you get to a certain spot where, I mean, I've still got so much further to grow. It's unreal. But I've accomplished some things, right? The amount of people that ask me to go to coffee is, I mean, I have plenty of people that I do mentor, but people just assume that you're just not going to, or you're not interested, or you don't have the time. It's crazy.
A prime example of this, a lot of people become successful to try to buy time. They want freedom. When you have somebody who's rich, successful, they have the ability to dictate their time. Now, go try to find somebody who works a 9 to 5 and take them out to coffee. See how good that works. You can't. They're on the clock. But you can ask the business owner who pays the employee to go out for coffee, and you got that meeting.
Yep. And here's the thing,
Shift that paradigm.
You know what they want to see in return is not a payment. They want to see that you bear fruit.
You do what they say.
Yeah.
You will
that you
absorb
attempt,
the information.
You absorb the information and give it a go. Right? That's what they want to see. Like, I will not waste my time twice with someone if they don't take some action. They don't have to agree with everything that I say. I'm not right about everything. So I'm not saying like, oh, I tell them these 10 things, they didn't do it. Did they do 2? Did they try? Like, are they trying? Are they attempting? Man, I can work with people forever. I got the patience of Job. But the one thing I don't is if someone wastes my time. Oh my gosh, like, waste my money, waste anything. Do not waste my time.
I used to take when I first got started at 18, my goal was to take one real estate agent out or one millionaire out almost every day to lunch. And the first thing I would lead with is, I don't know what I'm doing. Everything you tell me, I will absorb it. I will not waste your time. Will you just go out for one lunch with me? That was the first thing I said whenever I would reach out. Because, when you're 18, 19, 20 in real estate, nobody's going to take you seriously. You really got to sell them. Look, I will buy your lunch. I will absorb everything you say. I will not waste your time. I don't know what I'm doing. Help me. And you would be surprised how many people will help you. You will be surprised how many people will help you if you just ask in the correct way. In the correct way.
So flipping it around, being on the other side of things, is it fulfilling to you guys to see, like, when I guess you would call it a mentee just starts taking steps in the right direction as a result of what you tell them? Is that like really fulfilling?
100%.
Yes. I mean, that goes back to legacy and significance, what I was talking about earlier. Like, if I make more money, I mean, that may impact my family, but that doesn't impact anybody else really. But if I can mentor somebody and help them in their life, and they actually take those steps, whether it be having a better marriage or relationships or finances or launch a business or scale a business, whatever, like, that is a huge ROI, Huge return on investment for most people. I mean, some people don't care to pour into others. That's true. There are those people out there that just want to conquer and they don't really care about anybody else. But most people that are successful are very willing and eager to pour into somebody else and try to help them to get there faster.
That's great. I'm glad we hammered down on this. I think this will help a lot of people. A lot of people are in the shoes that I was. A lot of people are in those shoes right now. Like, should I get a mentor? What should I do? Next steps. I think this is a great thing to talk about.
I was looking at our analytics the other day. Our average person that watches is between 18 to 35, male. Most of them are, 25 to 35. So I think we hit the people that have that revolutionary moment where they say, I have to make a change because life's about to start getting real for me. Up until 25, you're bulletproof. You think you're on top of the world. You don't care about your finances. You're just trying to get drunk on the weekend. You're trying to, have fun.
Yep.
As soon as 25 hits, you're not the cool kid at the bar anymore.
Ooh, think about that. My average audience is 14 to 17. So the young bucks are getting this, digesting this. Imagine they make that change, grab a mentor at 15, 16, 17 years old. It's game on.
Unreal.
I had my red pill moment at 18. If I would have had my red pill moment at 14, I'd be so much further ahead in life.
I know our editor's going to watch this. We have an editor who's 15 years old out in Iceland, just grinding. Like at 15, I was playing video games, twiddling my thumbs.
Oh, yeah. That's awesome.
It's crazy to see how different people are.
Well, see, I was grinding and I was not absorbing anything.
At 15, you were grinding?
Oh, yeah. I started construction at 13. I worked nights, weekends, and summers when I was 13.
Jeez.
But I was one of those kids that at 13, I knew what I wanted to do for a living. Like, it wasn't a question. Like, I'm going to be an architect. I'm going to design and build unique homes. Like, there's nothing else I'm interested in doing. That's what I want to do. That's what I'm going to do with my life.
I'm going to make a clip real quick. If you could coach one 18-year-old on how to get a better direction in life, what would you say in a minute or less? You had an 18-year-old in front of you, and you were trying to focus on just helping out his direction in life. What would you say?
First thing I would ask is a question: is what is it that you do that people say you're really good at? Most of the things that we're really good at doing, we don't feel like we're really good at doing. But we're very quick to ignore or excuse when people say, dude, that was awesome, right? Whatever that is. Is that a sport? Is that a hobby? What is it? Like, what is it for you? And I believe that if you look at your thumbprint, God's never made another one. He made you. That's his stamp to show you, hey, man, no one's ever been you. No one's ever going to be you. I made you on purpose and for a purpose. And your job is to discover what that purpose is and to execute on it. And at 18, everybody's different. I firmly believe my mom was supposed to be a nurse. She's a world-class nurse. I mean, just no debate. My wife, when she was in her younger 30s, she got the Alabama Occupational Therapist of the Year award. The average recipient of that award is like in their 50s. And she got it when she was barely 30 because she's doing what she was created to do. Like, there's just no question. So an 18-year-old, there's something that you're supposed to do. There's a gift that you have to the world, and what is that? What are you good at doing, and what are you interested in doing? And if you can align those two things, like what you're good at. So what school teaches us to do is they reprimand you for the one thing you suck at. For me, it was history. I failed the Alabama history graduation exam twice. If I would have failed it the third time, I would have not graduated high school. And I was so focused on how dumb I was at this point in my life because I sucked at history. Nobody mentioned I scored off the charts on like science and English and did really well in math. It was the hyper focus on what you suck at. Here's the crazy thing. That's what schools do. They focus on that one grade that you are struggling in, and they want to work so hard to get that grade up. That's not your gift to the world. So if all you do is take your weakness and you get better, you have a better weakness. If you take your strength and you get better, you have world-class strength. And that's the difference. Like when you take somebody who's 18, like you're good at something, you're creating for something, you have an interest in something. And in school, they help you figure out like what you have interest in. But then they tell you where you suck. And it's like, dude, that's not going to be your gift to the world. Don't pay attention to those things. Focus on where you're good and where your interests are and become world-class at that. You have decades ahead of you at 18 years old. Decades ahead of you. And most mega millionaires in the world are not even in their prime until they're in their 30s. That's a true statement. So it's like, in one sense, like I want to tell everybody, like you, like do it now, like take action now, like don't wait, don't hesitate. But the other part of me wants to be like, dude, you've got some time. Like, don't put so much pressure on yourself.
Would you say just get in the right direction at a younger age, but maybe don't go 100 miles an hour. Maybe just go 65, 70. That's even fast. Maybe go 45, 55 starting out.
Dude, you're going to crush it. And compared to most people are just, I mean, at 18, most of your peers are like playing video games and stuff and partying and figuring out what they're going to do in the weekends. And I mean, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with those things, but I mean, you're so far ahead. Like, if you're listening to this right now, like, and you're 18, you're so far ahead of all your friends who are not going to listen to this.
That's a good point.
And guess what? That's average. So, by the way, you should hate average. And second of all, you should look at averages and say, those don't apply to me. I'm passionate about that. Like, you know, people will say, oh, well, over 50% of marriages end in divorce. I'm like, yeah, that's the average. Do you want an average marriage? Do you treat your spouse like average? Like, the average person is also broke. The average person is in significant amount of debt. The average person is in a job that they can't stand. The average person's health is horrible. So it's like, man, don't look around you and get an average of everybody else. Find the people, been there, done that, still doing it. Get around them and become that average, right? Because my marriage is rocking, you know, almost 11 years into it, right? So it's like, because I'm intentional on what I do with that, we don't have an average marriage. We're not going to have an average marriage. That's not on the table. We go to marriage conferences. We'll read books on it. We'll listen to things about it. We'll discuss it. We have hard conversations. We date each other. We joke with each other. Same way we did over 11 years ago when we met. Right? That shouldn't change. So you get around people like that and they're like, dude, I'm not the average. That doesn't scare me because I'm not going to be average. Sorry, that's just the average rant.
That's good. So let's use him as a case study. He's only 21 right now. Going back 2 years ago, your social circle versus your social circle now, after you've been around us for what, 2 months now?
Yeah, just about. I mean,
What do you think your quality of life is before having a strong group and having a strong group? Like, not what would you say has improved in your life?
Just the conversations I have and the way I can think. Like, I never really had a circle. Like, I always had friends, but I was just a lonely guy. I was just doing my own thing. I knew I had to walk my own path because the people around me weren't doing the right things per se. Not to talk down on them, they just weren't. And as I, walked into this friend group, just the conversations I have, like this, I would never in a million years imagine having this conversation or being around the people that I am around today. So it's just the doors that it opened and the conversations that I have greatly changed. And it's greatly changed my life and my outlook on life. My outlook on life is the number one thing that I'm most proud of right now, is just the way that I think about life. Like, I wake up tomorrow, I know that my outlook is just going to be 10 times better than it was a couple months ago.
Thinking bigger and asking better questions.
100%.
That was one of my goals for this year. Think bigger and ask better questions.
100%. I think this would be a good question to ask you to almost round it out. A lot of younger people are very, very worried about what other people think. How did you combat that? Because you can't say that you didn't think that. Everybody thought that at one point in life.
Oh, dude, I'm transparent on failures, where I've been, where I am. Like, I'm an open book, and I can tell you that, yeah, that definitely affected me big time. Affects me a lot less today, but I still love people and I care what they think to a certain extent. And at some point, you have to realize that the only way to avoid criticism is to say nothing, do nothing, and be nothing. And that's not my quote.
People will still criticize you. They say you're just horrible. You ain't doing nothing. You're lazy.
That's true, but you don't really stand out much. Like, if you don't do anything or say anything or become anything, and you're just not a target. Dogs don't bark at parked cars. Right? Ooh. So, like, if you only get attacked when you're moving, when you're actually doing something, do people go crazy? And here's the thing, Tim Ferriss taught this. He said, that one crazy person at your school that was like crazy? He said, well, when you have influence, then that is a great example of how many crazy people there are for that size group of people. So if you 10x your impact, then you're going to have 10 times the amount of crazy people that you've had to experience and deal with. So you're going to have haters. You're going to have people that don't believe in you. You're going to have people that drag something stupid from 10 years ago into your today as if it just happened today. And you see this everywhere. You see it with, I'm not going to get political, but you see it with, every president, every presidential candidate, every celebrity, You know, I mean, it's crazy. It's like you can have somebody who's a basketball player and they talk about their marriage. It's like, dude, they're a basketball player and they're a human being.
It's almost normalized these days.
It's almost normalized. Like I had a conversation with somebody the other day about Warren Buffett, about something to do with finances. And they're like, oh man, he's just like, I wouldn't follow him because of his family life. And I'm like, dude, his financial principles are sound. I didn't ask for marriage advice from Warren Buffett or family advice. It's like the guy knows about finances. He's great to learn from, but most people are not going to be great to learn from every area of their life.
Right.
You know, you should study people with a rocking marriage. Study people that have the assets or have the skill set or in the industry that you want to be in. You know, study the people that you want to be like, but remember that they're all flawed. That's the reason why they say never meet your heroes. They're not perfect.
Yeah. The way I think about it, I saw this picture one time. It was like, create your favorite basketball player. And it was like the body of LeBron James, the arms of Steph Curry to shoot. That's the way I think about it when picking mentors and people to watch. Like, I'm going to go get Grant Cardone for big real estate. I'm going to go get Jim Rohn for motivational purposes. Like, you just go create your own guy. It's not like you're saying you don't have to go to Warren Buffett for family advice.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it personally.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's a good analogy. I like
Having
that.
the third or fourth richest man in the world, he probably doesn't have that much time for his family throughout the course of his life. Now he probably does, but getting to be the third or fourth, fifth richest person in the world, it's going to be very hard for him to devote more than probably an hour a day to his family.
In a long time, by the way.
Yeah.
Like he didn't just shoot up there. Like he's been around. He knows money and investing like crazy. But, you know, whether he has a great family life or not is, you know, somewhat irrelevant unless you're listening to his family advice. I don't know anything about his family life.
I wouldn't be taking
by the
workout
way.
advice from him.
Yeah.
Definitely. If
Yeah.
he was in front of me and he was preaching anything financially, I'd be the first one with a pen and a paper. If he's
Yeah.
trying to teach me any sort of workout routine, ears are turned off at
You
that
got
point.
it. You got it. Yeah, that's smart.
Okay.
All right.
Let's wrap this up and let's ask Kevin, where do people find you?
You can find me at strategiclifedesign.com. If you want to find me on social, you can go to strategiclifedesign.com/connect, and you can find everything there. Like if you want to find all my social media channels or whatever, they're all listed right there. If you're listening to this anytime right now, like at the beginning of 2023, as we're live with this right now, I just did a 2.5-hour deep dive on how bogus resolutions and goal setting is. Mm-hmm. And what to do instead. And if you go to bit.ly, so that's bit.ly/strategic 2023. So bit.ly/strategic 2023. You have to pay minimum wage. It's $7.25 an hour for 2.5 hours. So it's $17.98.
You think it's worth it?
Well,
I've spent more money on more useless things. I would highly recommend it.
I don't think like your entire audience will resonate with me, but I think the right ones will. And so I'll just ask you, is it worth $7.25 minimum wage for me to coach you for 2.5 hours on how to change your life? That's up to y'all.
You guys go tell us and report down in the comments below if it was worth it or not worth it.
Yeah, 100%. All those links will be down below. So all you got to do is just click the video. You'll see them down there. So you don't have to memorize the bit.ly part. Just click on it.
Well, you guys get to see one of my favorite friends and mentors.
Well, dude, let me just say this.
Howard.
Likewise, man, I admire you. You are a sponge. Like you are a display of confidence, competence, and hunger. And I admire that about you because you come across as such a confident person. Like if someone meets you for 60 seconds, they won't really know the Justin because they'll say, oh, this guy's got it together. He's got it all figured out. And what they don't understand is like you're also one of the biggest sponges I've ever met. Like you listen so intently, and I think that's admirable. So likewise, and I've learned so much from you. I mean, my real estate portfolio is about 1/100th of yours or something like that. So I mean, I learned a lot from you as well. So likewise, man.
I appreciate that.
Yes,
that
sir.
actually means a lot coming from you.
That's awesome. Well, hey, man, appreciate having you on.
Absolutely, it's great to be here.
Remember, like, comment, subscribe, share.
You guys already know. We'll catch you in the next one.
Later, guys.